If you're not tracking the data, it makes it really, really difficult to report performance measures on a regular basis in the jurisdiction.
Blind spots in the local justice system and a concern about where that leaves a community, concerned about public safety. Tonight, Katu continues its multi-part investigation into people who Multnomah County judges released from jail and how well they're tracked before trial. This covers hundreds of suspects charged in a range of crimes. Most are released from jail waiting for their day in court. Thanks for joining us for Katu News at 6. I'm Deborah Now.
And I'm Steve Dunn. Do they actually show up in court? And while they're out, how many commit new crimes, and do they get arrested again? Katu investigator Wright Gazaway went to the county for answers and found out they don't know. Right? This is a big concern for people.
Steve, a huge concern. In many cases, a suspect is released from jail by a judge with conditions like supervision. However, our investigation uncovered serious holes in how the county tracks the success of that supervision, including whether the suspect even checks in. Remember Kathy Gibson and Tammy Perkins?
Outrage isn't the word. If I wasn't on TV, I'd tell you how I really felt.
They're furious about how quickly Bill Glenn Fominui, accused of exposing himself to Tammy's 12-year-old niece, got out of jail. The case led me into a deep dive on Multnomah County's pretrial release program. The pretrial period is just what it sounds like, the period between arrest on a charge and trial. Everyone is presumed innocent and protected by the U.S. Constitution. Plus, it's not justice to hold someone in jail for no good reason. However, there are serious gaps in how Multnomah County agencies track many people on pretrial release. Do they report to court-ordered supervision? What percentage show up in court? How many are rearrested for new crimes while on release? The county either can't tell me or can't easily figure out the answer to any of those questions. Dal Pra is the former deputy chief of the Maricopa County Superior Court Adult Probation Department in Arizona. He started Justice System Partners, an organization that works with cities and counties to improve their criminal justice systems. Can a system that doesn't consistently track its data prove its effectiveness?
They can. It makes it very hard to do, though. And I think almost impossible to do on a regular basis.
Dal Pra's team finished an extensive review of Multnomah County's pretrial program in 2018 and released the results in early 2020. The report recommended the county update and merge data systems between the courts, sheriff's office, jail, and Department of Community Justice so it can more easily track this information.
There's a lot of jurisdictions who are creating dashboards on their websites showing that kind of data. But first, you have to address the data gaps in all the agency systems.
Dal Pra's team did its own calculations on failure to appear and rearrest rates in both programs in 2018 using a sample of defendants. It shows 1 in 5 of more than 3,800 defendants, about 820 people, failed to appear in court at least once. Police rearrested nearly 15% of them while on pretrial release. That's about 570 people arrested for a new crime while waiting on a court date for a previous crime. As a judge, are you satisfied with the appearance rate of defendants?
No, I'm not. It's not a positive situation.
The county recently received a grant from the MacArthur Foundation to improve how it tracks people under their supervision waiting on a trial. Abby Stamp is the executive director of the Multnomah County Local Public Safety Coordinating Council. She leads the discussions among stakeholders about reforms in this area. How can the county capture that? The rate of appearances in court, the likelihood of someone to recommit a crime. How can you really capture that?
So part of the generous funding from the MacArthur Foundation is to make sure that we have the right people in play to build this future state, to really help us get to our vision.
One of those changes will be better computer systems to address the gaps in data I've outlined. The county will track who shows up for monitoring and whether those people show up for court or get rearrested on new charges. Stamp says the goal of any change is simple.
What we want to make sure that we're being clear about is the presumption of innocence, right, until proven guilty. We are all protected by that from the U.S. Constitution. And making sure that we are clear and risk-based about deciding who needs to stay in jail and who's allowed to maintain their life in the community with their family and their jobs, and really ensuring that connection, which is a positive thing for folks.
Remember Bill Glenn Fominui? His initial release included no supervision nor conditions.
Mr. Fominui is not present in the court at this time or appearing by WebEx from what we can tell.
he skipped the very first court appearance in his first case. He's now back in jail without bail. He's now accused of a burglary, a crime that happened while Foman Yui was on pretrial release.
Police say Michael Bivins vandalized Congregation Shir Tikva and Congregation Beth Israel on April 30th. Then on May 3rd, they say he set fire to the Muslim Community Center of Portland. K2's Eric Mock is live outside Congregation Shir Tikva. And Eric, leaders of those religious centers are concerned about him being released.
They are. They say they worried he allegedly could do something like this again. In fact, this is why. I mean, look, you can still see some of the glass shards here from when Shir Tikva had one of their windows busted out. Now, they've since replaced it, but those shards are still here as a reminder of what had happened here. Now, police say Bivins was actually caught when he went to a local TV station last Friday. He wanted to speak to a reporter. He's actually accused of trying to light the Muslim Community Center on fire, as well as smashing windows here and at the Beth Israel synagogue and spray painting anti-Semitic graffiti on the walls there. Now, today in court, he repeatedly refused a court-appointed attorney, but he eventually accepted for that hearing after the judge strongly advised him to. And Executive Director of Congregation Shir Tikva, Katie Schneider, told the court why she didn't want Bivins to be released pending trial.
There is some level of monetary damage that for small organizations is burdensome, but it's much more about the psychological impact when there is somebody out there targeting vulnerable communities for what they believe and for who they are. It represents a real threat and a real danger to us.
Now, other leaders of Jewish synagogues also talked about how this has created fear in their congregations as well. And, the prosecution wanted the judge to set a bail of $75,000, and he eventually did set a bail of $45,000 for Bivins' release, and he's next set to appear in court on May 17th.
Does show signs of hope, but we do have a lot of hard work ahead.
It's one of the issues that infuriates Portlanders the most, and one that keeps others out of the city altogether. We're talking piles of trash, endless graffiti, abandoned cars, and illegal dumping. And this week, Mayor Ted Wheeler says he is taking action by signing an emergency declaration. Good evening. Thanks for joining us, everybody. I'm Steve Dunn.
And I'm Deborah Knapp. Some business owners tell us this change is a long time coming. Others say they fear it will not lead to action.
K2's Megan Allison joins us live in Southeast Portland with a story. Megan, what are you hearing from new business owners in that area?
Well, Steve, the owner at Brewery 26 tells me right now businesses are carrying the load. He says every day his team is out picking up trash, looking for human waste, and chasing graffiti. Now, staff here are cautiously optimistic, but other businesses tell me they hope this is just a start.
Mayor Ted Wheeler says a new emergency declaration is coming this week, focusing on cleanup work outside of occupied homeless camps.
It improves livability by building connections between city bureaus and community groups to provide coordinated trash cleanup and graffiti abatement in neighborhoods and business districts all across the city of Portland.
Kurt Hoffman owns restaurants across Portland. Now he's feeling hopeful.
I think it's what businesses have been asking for 2 years, specifically restaurants. We're disproportionately dependent on outdoor seating, for instance, being safe and clean.
In neighborhoods like Old Town, business owners tell me they're less worried about graffiti and more concerned with issues like ongoing vandalism and break-ins.
Businesses just are barely recovering from COVID, now inflation, and now, I'm pretty sure those windows and doors are real expensive to repair. And if you have that, if it happens continuously, sometime insurance won't cover it.
As this brewery owner builds his business, he says this could be a tool to attract tourists back to Portland again.
There's only so much that we can do, and I think if we could see a real citywide concerted effort and use some of the money that's supposedly available to clean it up, I think it'd be a huge boon for the city, because I think we're missing a lot of business, which ultimately affects the city's budget too.